Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you're joining us from. We have Sonia with us. Sonia is joining us all the way from Mumbai, India. She's currently working as a PYP coordinator in JBCN International School, and she's here to talk about assessments in PYP. No matter if you're not a PYP teacher or not an IB teacher, don't worry. It's always good to learn about the new approaches of assessment. So, Miss Sonia is here with us, and I would not take much time. A very warm welcome to you, Miss Sonia, to Teachers Tribe International Community. And over to you. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, hello everybody, and welcome to this beautiful
Can you
platform.
hear me,
And
Sonia?
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Hi, am I
Yes, you
audible?
are.
Yeah,
Please go
yeah,
ahead.
yeah. So,
Yes.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for this beautiful platform on giving me this opportunity to come and share a little bit about assessment in PYP. And I was just told that this is a very safe place, and I actually that's so very important, right? To feel safe when you are in a community and to be able to share because in PYP or elsewhere also we all are lifelong learners. So yes, this session, that next 50 minutes, let us learn from each other. Please feel free to comment in the chat box, and without too much wasting of time, I'm going to just start, and just help me out. I hope my screen is visible, and y'all can
Yes.
see the whole screen. Yes, thank you.
It's
So
coming up,
yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
thanks. Yeah, so I'm going to start, and a little bit about myself. I have been into this field of education for the past, say, over 24 years, and always been a part of the primary school schooling in whichever school I was attached to. And I have played a very pivotal role in leading educational institutions to reimagine, recreate, and sustain high quality education, especially in the primary section. I'm extremely passionate about curriculum planning. I keep myself updated by reading and listening to podcasts and expanding my comfort zone by sharing ideas and collaborating with like minded educators. And that's how today I'm over here sharing whatever little I know about assessments in PYP. Gardening and cooking help me to de stress and calm my nerves. So that's a little bit about myself. Moving on, to what this session is going, what are we here for? To understand what is assessment, purpose of assessment, different types of assessments, effective assessment strategies of effective assessments, and the most important, I feel, assessment capable practitioners, that are you and me. We play a very, very important role in when we talk about assessments. So I hope that we cover these points and have a little overview about them. Let's begin by this. In the chat, please write, when I think of assessment, what do you feel? What do you think about assessment? If you all can write in the chat box about, complete this sentence, when I think of assessment. All right. I don't know whether I'll be able to see the chat. Yeah.
No, it's coming up, Sonia. It's coming
Yeah.
up. People are writing. We just need
Checking
to
for
take it.
understanding. Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Yes, I can read that. Yes, Komal, thank you. Checking for understanding. That's what you think about. Yes, Kiara. It is an indicator to gather evidence of our students' learning progress. Fantastic. Yes, true about it. Yes, I mean, when I think of assessment, it is reflection of our teaching. Absolutely. Evaluating students' understanding. Yes, absolutely right. Great. So moving from here, what is assessment? As you all have written in the chat box, yes, Assessment is ongoing process of gathering, analyzing, reflecting, and acting on evidence of learning to inform teaching. Yeah, sounds a lot, but exactly what you all had put up in the chat box, it is actually speaking about that. It is ongoing. We gather evidence, we reflect, and we act on it for the learners learning to inform teaching. Assessment involves teachers and students collaborating to monitor, document, measure, report, and adjust learning. So, very, very important these things about what is assessment. You monitor, the word itself says that it's an ongoing thing. We said you monitor it, document it. Very, very essential that you document all the evidences of assessment as a good practice. You make it into a complete habit that the minute you give assessment, you must document it. Do not leave it for the other time or another day. You measure it. What do you mean by measure it? We will talk in more depth ahead. And you report obviously whatever you have collected, you have monitored, you have documented, you have measured it, you are going to report it, and then you adjust your learning. Somebody had said in the chat box, it is also a reflection on my teaching. How do I then understand the class? When you give assessments, you understand that where your class is, and accordingly you adjust your learning. Now, this is something that is very close to me, that not just for the teachers or the learners, the assessments are for other stakeholders as well. So, when I say other stakeholders, then we come to the purpose of assessment. So, teachers definitely we become more effective, reflective about the practices to employ based on the abilities of her class or his class. That's what I was just trying to explain before, is that when you give assessment, and for example, you have given an assessment on probably understanding 3D shapes in your classroom, and you after the assessment you realize that 80% of your learners have not been able to deliver what you were expecting. So then, hey, you pause over there, you reflect, and you say something's gonna miss. My whole class probably has not understood the concept. So, what you do is you will go back and you will revisit your teaching strategies and revisit that concept. You also, every year is a different year, right? So, this year, probably you've got brilliant learners in the classroom and they've been able to understand, absorb the topic very, very quickly. But maybe the next year your class needs that little more breaking down and further understanding of the concept. So these assessment, the purpose of assessment helps us as teachers to really reflect on our practices, and then depending on the ability of our classroom, plan our learning engagements and experiences. Learners, absolutely the core of our teaching and learning and of our assessments. So the learners, what happens when we give assessment is that they become effective, self-regulated, and reflective learners. So that becomes and this depends on us as educators. When we plan our assessments, that we give that pause time to the learners to really reflect, to understand, to self regulate their own learning. In short, like, let them take the onus of learning. Again, the pandemic has taught us, right, that parents are a very important component, and the homeschool connect is very, very important, because parents, because of our assessments that we keep on doing, they are ongoing, we said, the parents, they become more informed of their child's learning, their learning goals, and they contribute to their learning. In this, it's a win-win situation for us as educators, because what happens that they become partner in the teaching and learning of the learners. So yes, so we have our teach, what is the purpose? Always, why am I doing this assessment? Keep asking yourself, what is the purpose behind doing this assessment, right? So Teachers, we become reflective, we can understand the capability of our classroom. Learners start taking owners of their own learning. The parents, they become more informed about the child's learning goals and contribute to their learning. And very, very important is for the schools, assessments are very important for the schools to become impactful learning communities where they use assessment tool to evaluate the depth of their curriculum. Correct? So that's the importance, and that's how important assessments are. So definitely for all the stakeholders, assessments play a very important role. Then it all falls on us as educators. How do we take this assessment, and how do we plan these assessments, and what is the purpose behind doing assessments? I'm just going to read something to you, all of y'all. Me, I taught my dog to whistle. My friend, but I cannot hear him whistling. Me, I said I taught him. I did not say he learnt it. In the chat, I would request you, if you've understood what I'm trying to speak over here, how can we fill this gap? I would like to hear people on the chat, like chat in your chat box, please, if you can start writing. I've
So,
taught my.
can you please put up that prompt again so that people can see and then reflect back if they
All
missed
right.
it?
So then, yeah, I just thought I'll come back on the screen. Never mind. I'll go back there. Uh, I'll read it again if you all want. Sorry. I taught my dog to whistle, my friend, but I cannot hear him whistling. Me, I said I taught him. I did not say he learned it. So obviously, there has been a gap, right? So, how can we fill this gap? According to you, how can you fill this gap? All right. I think I should I go ahead? Yeah.
No, we are
Okay.
still receiving
I can get it.
responses.
He is still practicing. All right. Make it interesting, reward and focus. All right. Very nice. The dog's teacher did not gather evidence of learning. Yes. Great. Thank you for being risk takers and, writing in the chat box. So let's see. When we talk about this, that I have taught, but whether the learner has learned it or not, how do we fill this gap? There are different types of assessments, right? We all know for learning and off learning, which is very, very important. So basically, let's take one at a time. When we talk about for learning, the word for is there in it. So formative, your formative assessments, your ongoing assessments, your small bite assessments, your regular assessments, to understand whether the learner has understood the concept, is for learning. So the word formative assessment has for in it, right? So that is for learning. All right. So where do we go from here? So all your formative assessment, you're gathering evidences, you're seeing, you're reflecting on it. Where do you go? Then comes your assessment as learning. What is as learning? So, for learning and off learning, first let's focus on that. For learning, there are formative assessments, there are ongoing assessments, there are regular assessments, and from here, where do we go? Right? And off learning is your summative assessments. Yes, with the enhanced PYP, the whole thing about assessment, summative assessments, is not mandatory now. And if you want, you can do it, or else formative number of formative assessments done regularly are enough. But I still believe that off learning is also very important, because what did we do? It's very important as educators and learners to understand, it's a product, it's something. Maybe in a unit of inquiry after 6 weeks, you want to understand that, hey, this concept has been understood well or not. So a summative assessment helps in that manner. So for learning and off learning becomes very easy. For is your regular continuous formative assessments, and your summative assessment is the product. You want to know whether that concept has been understood well by the learner. As learning, this is more about how are we learning. It is your metacognitive learning takes place over here. And again, this is like a reflection after you've done a formative assessment, and you realize that you interpret that no, they haven't understood, or they are still, the concept is not very clear. Then you will do supportive assessments. So maybe the whole concept, it's not that the child has not understood the whole concept. A part of the concept, the child is still confused. So what will you do then? That's where you will start processing and ensuring those assessments are small bites to the area where the child has not understood. Yeah. So for learning, as learning, and off learning. So you have your formative assessment, then you have your supportive and formative assessment, and you have your summative assessments. Formative assessments, if you ask me, any teaching and learning done in the class needs to be assessed, right? So even like a exit ticket becomes a formative assessment. Yeah. Even a question, sometimes, you can just ask a thinking question to understand whether the child is being able to process, gather the information that you are giving, to see that that concept is clear. So formative assessments, they don't need to be very structured, or you don't need to have them sit down and do a paper pen kind of a task sheet. A formative assessment could be a role play. A formative assessment could, as I said, could be an exit ticket. A formative assessment could be a presentation. So that, and do that regularly and more in number. The more you do that, the authenticity of understanding the concept will be in place. Obviously, after you've done that, a lot of peer assessments take place. A lot of social skills, by default you're building on that, so your ATL skills are also getting developed. Your summative assessment, again, this is just building on to all your formative assessments, right? So ensure that your summative assessment should not be something different. It should be a culmination of your formative assessments. All the formative assessments that you have done, let your summative assessment be a good culmination of those assessments together. Yeah. So I'll move ahead. When we are talking about assessments, and we talk about the teacher, the peer, and the learner. So what you can see on the screen now is, let's do from the lens of a teacher, from the lens of a peer, and from the lens of a learner. What are the importance? Why do we do assessments, right? Where the learner is going. So obviously, as I said, that formative assessment, clarifying, sharing, understanding the learning intentions for everybody is going to be the same, from the perspective of a teacher, from a perspective of a peer, or from the perspective of a learner. So where the learning is going. Now, when you come to where the learner is, so the teacher is seeing engineering effective discussions, tasks, and activities that will help in collecting evidence of learning. So, for a teacher, where is the learner going becomes very, very important to ask yourself the purpose behind the assessment, the kind of assessments, that the different kinds of assessment you will be using to really understand whether the concept has been learned or has been understood by the learner, right? So where the learner is from the teacher's perspective, from the peer, activating students as learning resources for one another, right? It's known that we learn best from our peers. What we are doing today is just an example of that, right? That we are learning from each other. We all are peers over here. On a Sunday, we have been, dedicated, passionate educators who want to know a little more about assessment, right? A little more about good standard and practices about assessment. So that's exactly what the peer does. We just learn from each other. And where the learner is, from the learner, activating student as owners of their own learning, right? Over here, when I'm presenting this, I take complete onus that what I'm talking to y'all and what I'm sharing is authentic and will add little value to your understanding of what assessment in PYP looks like. How to get there? Now, for a teacher, very important is provide feedback that moves the learners forward. Correct? So, timely feedback is very, very, very essential. Correct? Over there, it's just so important that even now, today as an adult, I'm doing this with y'all, but obviously, a little feedback from y'all. Hey, Sonia, you were too fast. Next time you could go slow, or we understood it well, you broke it down well, or you could have given more examples. Whatever constructive feedback really helps the person, the learner, to move forward. So that's what assessments actually do. So lot of formative assessment will ensure a successful summative assessment. Now, summative assessment could, you could also say that no, I'm not going to do any summative assessment, but I'm going to do multiple of formative assessments. So please, educators, friends over here on screen, please do not shy from assessing your learners, right? Do that regularly, do it completely ongoing, and make it into small bites when you are doing this formative assessments. When you do assessments, please ensure that you document it and there are evidence of all your hard work and the learner's hard work. Moving to our third very important part, that what are the strategies for effective assessments? Authentic, clear and specific, varied, developmental, collaborative, interactive, feedback to feed forward. Yes, very, very self explanatory over here. What I'm going to share now with you is that whenever you sit down to plan an assessment, please do it backward by design. Yeah. When I say backward by design, when you sit to plan an assessment, identify what is the knowledge you want to assess. What is that you want to assess from this assessment? Identify the conceptual understanding and what skills are you looking. Are you looking at research skills? Are you looking at their time management skills? Is it that you want to understand whether they have understood the function of a particular concept? So very important to, when you sit for your planning of assessment, to understand the knowledge. What is it that I want to assess? What conceptual understanding is that I want to assess, and what is a skill that I want to assess. Then, very important is identify the design of assessment. When I say, what do I mean by design of assessments? So, you all know you have rubrics, you have got self checklist, then you have got performance based assessment, you have project based assessments. So, decide that which design of assessment will actually go well when I want to assess these conceptual understanding, these skills, and this knowledge, right? So whether it's going to be a role play that I want to, like give them, or will that help them to be able to really, really show all these criterias of mine. So very important is to identify the design of the kind of assessment you want to do. Plan your learning experiences that will explore the learner's critical thinking. So, excuse me. So, when you are planning for your assessment, keep all these things in your mind. Make it authentic. Ensure that you're giving them scope to be able to connect to the real world, right? Make it clear and specific. The success criteria, the process, everything should be very, very clear. Share it with the learners before you give them the assessment. It's very, very important for the learners to understand what am I being assessed on. You know, it is actually like a, it's just not fair if we don't give them the success criteria, we don't tell them what we are assessing them, and just give them something to do. That's not fair to them and to you. So please be well prepared when you give assessment. Have everything ready, your tools, your assessment tools, your strategy that you're going to use, everything should be very clear in your head. You know, they say use lot of variety when you are giving assessments. If I can just make a little personal connect, my times when I was growing and I was a student, somewhere I felt that my teacher was there to only assess what I didn't know. You know, those worksheets were there, and those question papers were there, and it was a sit down thing for hours together. We used to sit and write. Don't do that. Don't do that now, because we know for sure that that doesn't help. Make your assessments so engaging and fun, if I can say so, that the learner really looks forward to assessments and wants to show their learning, right? So that should be our objective. It should be developmental, that is like, you should not be competitive, right? So it, you don't give assessment to see where Sonia is or where an XYZ is compared to Sonia. No, you give an assessment to see where Sonia was and where she is now and where she can go. So please ensure that your assessments are designed in those manners. Collaborative. Yes, engage the learners in your assessment in the process of evaluation. Don't think that, oh, I'm a kindergarten teacher or I'm a grade 1 teacher. How can I do that? Believe me, once you start getting your learners, you know, involved in the planning of the assessment and your evaluation process, it'll be so much fun, and they completely start taking onus of their own teaching and learning. Interactive, very, very important, right? Ongoing, and it is lot of one-on-one check-in. Sit down after you've given an assessment, ask the child, you give your feedback, so that there is feed forward. So it provides feedback on current learning to inform what is needed to support future learning. And very important is timely feedback. So when you give an assessment, ensure that the feedback is given timely, because if there is a gap in your giving the feedback, you have lost the purpose, right? That whole thing is, I think it does not then, it is not effective. So keep these things in mind when you are planning assessments. This is something what I strongly believe, and I thought I'll share with you all. Assessment is not a checkbox. It's something that we can always work on and improve upon, and it's for the learner. Always keep in mind, these assessment is for that learner, and it is to ensure that the learner, where that learner is now, where he was earlier, where he is now, and where you want the learner to go. So your assessments should be designed in those manners. Observations and anecdotals, they are the main source of information for assessments. Please get into this practice of maintaining maybe a journal, maybe an Excel sheet, whatever you're comfortable with, observe, write running records. This will help you as an educator to really understand your learner. Each learner in your classroom should be valued for what he or she is. These small observation and anecdotals that you write on regular basis will really help you to ensure that after a year you are so proud of your own teaching and learning and of that learner. Assessment is not a judgment, but that it informs our planning as a teacher and informs how we can create just right experiences for our class. Yes, it should not be judgmental. It should not be, oh, X student did it and Y didn't do it. So please never compare. That assessment should be like a storehouse for you to understand your learner better. Assessment is always happening, it is ongoing. As I said, assessments are not sit down, paper, pencil worksheets. Assessment can be, it's happening every time. It just depends on us how we are going to convert it into evidences. The success may look different for each learner, but still be considered a success. This is something I strongly believe, right? So now I would like to hear in the chat some of your belief. What do you believe about assessment, and why should we take assessments, and why should we do assessment? So if you could write in the chat box.
They take some time to respond. They'll be responding. Yeah.
Yeah, I will pause. And
Quite
if
an
there's
quite an engaging audience you have.
and always grateful for that. And if you have any question, I'll take a pause over here. And if I've done so much of talking, so
Yeah.
yes, if yeah,
So
if you have any questions,
I think first I can share the responses of your prompt, and then we can
yes,
take one question.
sure,
So yeah, Diana is saying to move forward, I need to know where I stand. Beautiful, beautiful, Diana.
great, yes,
Nusrat is saying, I believe learners should self-assess his or her own understanding and look for the next step. Yes, we do agree. We want to hear more, so do share your beliefs about assessment. All right. So we can take one question. Razia is asking, how can we assess a slow learner?
yeah. So thank you for asking this question, Razia. This has been as an educator for me also, that we all talk about differentiation, right? We talk that our teaching and learning should be differentiated, our instruction should be differentiated. My question has always been that when teaching and learning is differentiated, why assessments cannot be differentiated? So that is my recommendation. Please ensure that you should have your assessments also differentiated. You know where your child is, you know where this learner is struggling, where what is the shortcoming. So please ensure that your assessment is actually going to empower the learner in a manner, after doing that feel good factor, that yes, I know it and I can do it, rather than give a standardized assessment, which again then gets into frustration, right? Because we know the child will not be able to do that. So Razia, please do that. Have differentiation in your assessments also. So it is a task for an educator. It becomes a little extra, we walk that extra mile, but that's why we are educators, right? So please take that pain in doing that. Yes, yes, absolutely. Reshma, well said. So I hope, Raja, I've answered your question. So do that, give small bites, and you might know, you can just you will know your learner better. Sometimes, you know, they can illustrate very well. Let the assessments be based on that, only on us. Or now, you know, some of them are very well articulated, so ask them to record. You record their responses. Not necessarily everyone's good at writing, correct? So please ensure that your assessments are also differentiated. Assessment is one of platforms where students can perform their academic abilities and teachers can plan their ongoing. We are always assessing and monitoring our students' attitudes and level of mod. Yes, of course. Any questions more, or can I go ahead?
I think you can go ahead, Sonia.
Yeah.
Give
Thank
the
you.
other.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for putting up those and sharing your beliefs, right? So thank you for doing that. You know, if you can read that little cartoon that I've put over there, that comic, do you want us to write what we think or what we think you want us to write? So that's something, you know, as educators, we need to have that mind shift. Um, what I'm going to do is now, you know, whatever I've spoken, if you have gone through the enhanced PYP document, you will see this graphic representation over there. Very beautifully talks about assessments, for who it is, what is assessments, how is assessment, and why is assessment. So the what, how, and why in this graphic representation, you can see that. I'm going to pause and y'all can understand, read it, and then we can. I will obviously explain it. So just give you a few seconds to just go through it. So, as I said, you know, that assessments are for the learner, learning and teaching, and the learning community, right? So, that is for assessments are for not only the learner, not only the teacher, but it is for the learner, teacher, parent, school to understand where the curriculum is and how they can really work on improving any aspects of something which is not in the right place. This can only be done through assessments. We collect our evidences, we collect the data, we sit down and we analyze it. So it is a process. And the more you start digging into it, the more you start enjoying doing assessments, planning for assessments, gathering evidences, believe me, your teaching and learning will become also very enjoyable. Yeah. So what, as we discussed, what is it that we assess? Knowledge, skills, and conceptual understanding. Always when you sit for an assessment planning, keep all these things in your mind. How am I going to do the tools, the strategies, you know, when you need for monitoring, for documentation, and for measuring their learning? So please keep all this in mind when you sit to plan your assessments. And of course, why do we do it? To inform learning and teaching, correct? And you inform your learning and teaching to everybody, to yourself, to your learners, to their parents, to your school. So that's all about your assessment in a nutshell. The way we assess our learners actually speaks volumes about what we actually value in education, right? And that's the mind shift we can see as educators of this century. We know that, you know, our teaching and learning is, we are making our learners ready for the 21st century. We don't even know the kind of jobs that are going to be available or that will be there 10 years from now. But what we can do as educators is make them ready as a global citizen, make them leaders, make ensure that the ATL skills are developed in them. And all this, as an educator, if your environment in the classroom is so conducive, your teaching and learning is so progressive, your assessments are creative and innovative, I am sure your learners will, you know, thank you when they step out in the real world when they are ready to take this world and when they find jobs for themselves. So please ensure that you focus and you really spend time, brainstorm with your peers, brainstorm as a group in your school about assessments. There are four dimensions of assessment. Most of us, we know how to do the monitoring, the documenting, and the reporting. At least this is from my experience, I can tell you. These three things come very naturally as an educator. But when it comes to measuring our learning, and if you can see, the graphic organizer itself, it is the monitoring of the learning shows a space which is more. We do assessments for monitoring learning. Yes, documentation happens. And reporting, obviously, when I am monitoring and when I'm documenting, I am going to report. That measuring learning, when we talk about that, start spending time, start sitting with your leaders, your grade level leaders, your coordinators, your peers, and start measuring that learning. When I say measuring, you collect so much of data, correct? When you are documenting, when you are reporting, start measuring it. So was when Sonia came to my class, she was at maybe phase 1, and now slowly I can see that she has reached phase 2. So then this is one way of measuring your individual learner. You're measuring as a class. You can start measuring all the learners that are in your class. As a school, then you can start measuring your learning across grades in your primary division, in your primary section, pre-primary section, and then in your secondary. So that's how, as a school, you will grow, you will develop, and you will understand that, hey, what we realize is that our learners are struggling with X subject. It could be math, it could be English, it could be, you know, even the understanding of how to take action. As collectively, you all have come to that conclusion. Then what do you go? You go back to the drawing board and you start collectively then saying, what are the learning experiences? What is my teaching and learning strategy going to change so that our learners overcome those difficulties of that subject and can excel in the subject? So, if I'm making sense, measuring learning is equally important, and please try to focus also on that. So, monitoring, documenting, reporting, and measuring learning. This is something I think as educators, I am going to really talk about is that assessment capable practitioners that are you and me, right? We have to be assessment capable practitioners. And what do I mean by that? It's all there, it's written. This is very important. Start practicing this as an educator. Once your learners see all this, believe me, they are going to just enjoy the whole system of learning, and then being able to really show their understanding, I think, in a very creative manner. So, what y'all can see on the screen, y'all can read it. So I'm not going to read that. But what is it that will make us capable practitioner for assessment? There are some points I will like to share with you all. Work with learners to regularly create and reflect on individual learning goals. Start doing that. The good practice is that with your learners, regularly create and reflect on their individual goals. Every individual's learning goal is going to be different. So take time out, sit, you could do it semester wise, you could do it quarter wise, whatever suits for your school, for you individually, what suits, start doing that. Have, when you talk about documentation, have these goals properly penned down against each learner's name. So this is very, very important. Clearly identify the success criteria. So you know that this is the goal that we are setting for this learner. What is the success criteria for that learner? So please ensure that that is penned down properly. Teach learners how to interpret and use assessment evidence. Now that's in your hands, right? As a practitioner, as an educator of assessment, you have to make them understand that that's where we say you have to do that one on one. Sit with your learner after the assessment and ask them, what happened? What happened over here? You didn't understand the question. What happened? Or you did this very well. So, like their strength, their weaknesses, very important that that dialogue is exchanged between you and the learner. Now, this is as an educator, I'm talking how can we become assessment capable practitioner. So, regularly reflecting on the child's learning goals, success criteria very clearly laid down, interpreting the assessment, helping the child, doing that conference one on one with the child, create a supportive and non competitive classroom. Now, this is completely on us as educators, where that learner, when he or she steps in into your classroom, knows that it is okay to make mistakes. No one is judging me over here. Make that kind of environment in your classroom. Do not make it competitive. For competition, the field is the place, right? When you have sports, they can have football matches, they can have cricket match. There they can become competitive. But in the classroom, make it a supportive environment, right? That you learn from each other. And it's okay to make mistakes. Provide clear, specific feedback for improvement. This is again something which is personal. The word very good, or on a task sheet, or on an assessment you write, well done, it says nothing. It gives a learner no feedback, correct? So please take time out and give that kind of feedback, which will help that learner to improve, to go forward. So that should be a practice that you should be actually imbibing in yourself. That I'm not going to write this very good, well done. It says nothing. Yeah. Give time to learners to reflect. Now, obviously, you have given them a feedback. Give them time to reflect. Give them that kind of opportunities where they can show that, okay, you had given me this feedback, you've given me these opportunities, and hey, see, I'm doing it. So that will actually bring a lot of confidence in the learner. So give them proper feedback for feed forward, give them wait time, and ensure that they are being able to reflect on your feedback. Peer assessments. Please regularly have peer assessments. This builds on assessment skills, so peer assessments are very, very important. So these few strategies or maybe practices that I just shared with you all, if you follow that, it'll make you a very capable practitioner for assessments. And once you start enjoying doing that, you can see the shift in your classroom. The learners will start enjoying doing that. Yeah. So checking for understanding, regularly doing that is very, very important. So I'm going to actually, end this session by a quote which says, "We can learn without grades, but we cannot learn without feedback." Yes, I would like to acknowledge my JBCN International Schools head office team. Learned a lot from them, and of course, Principles to Practice. Please, if you have not read that, start reading. It is like a Bible for all of us. So please do that. And you can reach out to me on kediasonia14@gmail.com. And that's my telephone number, 99670111718. And thank you for being an excellent audience. Though I would have loved to do this face to face and not through this screen, but nevertheless, there is a silver lining. At least I'm being able to reach out to educators, maybe probably face to face, which I would have never been able to do. So, thank you again for giving me this opportunity to share a little bit about my understanding on assessment in PYP.
Thank you so much, Sonia. It was lovely hearing your, lot of experiences, and we learn a lot from experiences. And I think audience could relate with you. There are many people who are agreeing with you about your thoughts and beliefs, and you had backed up with the PRC thing. So it was really great listening to you. And guys, if you have any questions in your mind, please do ask those questions. Sonia will be able to answer it over here. So throughout
I'll
the
try my
presentation,
best to do that. I try my best.
yeah, come across any such questions that you want to ask Sonia, you can ask now, or she has provided her email ID. You can write to her. And I have some very interesting comments that we missed during the prompts. So we have Reshma saying, totally agree. Assessments are ongoing process, especially in early years. Yes, we do agree. Like in all years, not only in early years, it's an ongoing process and make it ongoing. And we have Varsha defining the assessments practices in a nutshell. Wonderful, Varsha. Thank you so much. We have Kira. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Again, now we are getting some of the responses. Reshma is asking, would you please share your contact details again? So if you can
For
flash
you,
the slide again.
I'll write it in the chat box. Will that help?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. All right. Do you have any material you can share in terms of differentiated instruction and assessment?
Kiara,
Uh,
you can write to me on my email and I will help you with that.
Two books that I would like to suggest here that has helped me a lot. One is Read Carroll and Tomlinson and Caroline Coyle. These are the two authors, who have written a lot in differentiated instructions. You can do that. And on assessment, Sonia has shared a lot. As Sonia said, if you're an IB teacher, please go to PRC. There's a lot of material and a lot
Yes.
of case studies are there that you can go through, and you can learn more from there. One of the book that is my favorite is Developing Assessment Capable Learners. That is a
Yes,
wonderful
yes.
book that I was reading as I stopped halfway done. So that's a wonderful book that you can go through. So these two authors, Carol and Tomlinson and Caroline Coyle, wonderful authors for differentiated instruction. I learned a lot from both of these ladies. Thank you, Miss Sonia, for such an informative session. Thank you, Nusrat.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we have Kira saying again, thank you. Thank you so much, Sonia. I should thank you for being here with us on a Sunday. Although it is the first working day for me here in Bangladesh, a little change from India. But I know like
Oh.
many of you are enjoying your weekends and simultaneously attending this session.
That's
Thank you.
exactly what I said in the beginning. That just shows, we have a shared language and we all have taken out that time and we are here because we believe, right, in what we do.
Yes.
So, yes, thank you for those who have joined us live.
So this is for you, Sonia. Thank you so much. This is a little token of appreciation from for you from all of us at Teachers Tribe International Community. We would love to have
Thank
you
you.
back, probably on some of the topic that you have started today. Differentiation is an amazing topic.
Yes.
Next week we will have Eliana joining us. I'm not sure. I think she is from Jordan, and she's going to talk about concept based instructions. And do join us. And I would, because she's a concept based trainer, she is a trained person from the community, and she's going to share a lot about the concept based instructions, so we would hear back from her. And one interesting, Sonia, all the great insights I could relate with you, because as you said, we share the same passion, same language, so a lot of relational understanding I could
Yes.
relate with you. And we gained, new perspectives again, from the chat box. So a small token of appreciation for all of you. So if you're here, please fill out this form so that you can receive a certificate. Ensure that you write your right name because certificates are auto-generated. So please ensure that you're writing your right name. Would you like to conclude, Sonia, saying bye-bye to everyone?
Yes,
Because we
thank
are
you.
here.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, again, Roxana is thanking you. She has joined us from Ecuador. There are people from different places. They didn't write in the beginning. So
Yeah.
I know a few of them. Some are from Pakistan, some are from Bangladesh, some are from Ecuador. There are people from South Africa as well. So great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone
Thank you.
was
And I
joining us.
hope all of y'all enjoyed as much as I enjoyed presenting this for y'all. And hope to collaborate and, continue this whole relationship that we have built over the screen. And hopefully, to also face to face, we should be able to connect and meet soon, hopefully.
Someday soon. Thank
Yes.
you. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll
Thank
meet
you.
next week.
Yeah.
People are
Thank
thanking you. Yeah, it's flooding. Thank you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you